Okay, guys. Well, it is the first episode of this new thing that I'm doing centered around Wyndham Rotunda, Bray Wyatt. I'm calling it the Firefly fan channel or something like that. I'm workshopping the title, but here we are. I wanted to get started with Jodie Gilly, who is Abby from Insiders Wrestling, a channel that I have gotten to know quite well over the last few months. But you, Jodie, you're a lovely magnetic personality. Your passion for Wyndham and Bray, or Wyndham and Bray, the same person, but the passion is amazing. I've never seen anything like it. And it kind of reminded me of how much I loved Mick Foley back in the day, and how much Mick did for me emotionally to get me through stuff as someone with cerebral palsy who didn't look like everybody else. And kind of I found solace in Mick Foley's character. And that's enough about me. This is obviously about you. So tell me where your love of Bray first started. Can you take me back to the moment, Jodie, that you saw Bray, you saw Wyndham, and that moment, that spark that you were like, wow, this is something different. This is something I've never seen before, and I love this.
Yeah. So I never really watched wrestling as a kid. My brother did. I never really got into it. And when Chris and I started dating, he grew up watching wrestling. So he is a wealth of knowledge. And he kind of talked me into it. He's like, you should just watch it and try it and see what you think. You might find somebody that you like. And obviously, I initially gravitated towards Bray because the first match that I ever watched was the Ultimate Deletion match between him and Matt Hardy. And it was just something so different than what I expected wrestling to be. So both of them immediately, I was like, I like those two guys a lot. And, enjoyed that until Bray, left for a year. During that time, I kind of gravitated towards Roman and Seth. Those were kind of my favorites after he wasn't there anymore. And then the promos started coming out, the vignettes started coming out, and me and Chris were just looking at each other like, he's like, I think that's Bray coming back. And I was like, really? And then the Firefly Funhouse started, and it blew my world upside down. And it came in a perfect time in 2019 because that was probably one of the toughest years of my life. My mom got diagnosed with breast cancer, and I was 600 miles away from her. I couldn't be there because of work. And my husband got laid off from his job. And, we were having some in-law issues, and it was a really, really tough year. And every time Bray came out, it just gave me something to smile about and reminded me that it's okay to be joyful, even though you're in this dark black hole and don't know how to get out of it. So I said, I'd really like to meet him one day and just tell him thank you for saving my life, because I was at the point where I don't want to be here anymore. And I've been through something similar to that. I had postpartum depression after my oldest son was born. And I could feel myself getting to that place again. And that's when Bray kind of showed up, and he literally did save my life. So I wrote it all down in the letter, everything that happened throughout the year, and just kind of why I was in such a bad spot, and how he kind of gave me something to smile about through all of it. And said thank you for saving my life. And I went to SmackDown in Evansville in January 2020. Wasn't sure I was going to meet him or not. I was going to try to catch him while he was on the way in. And somebody sent me a Facebook message. I was sitting at the Starbucks that was across the street, and I got a Facebook message from somebody in my Facebook group, my Bray Wyatt Facebook group. And he said, are you sitting at the Starbucks? And I was like, what? So it turned out there was this group of people that was there that are in the Facebook group, and started hanging out with them. And actually that morning got a phone call that one of my favorite patients had passed away. So it was just, started off not great. And I was just not happy. I messaged one of my friends and just said, I just want to go home. Like, I don't even want to. And his gut instinct, and he's always been right, he said, sis, please just stay. I have a feeling that you're going to meet him. So I did. And he got out, I pulled up, got out of the car. I could not say anything. So the people that I was in the group with got his attention and said, Bray, she has a present for you. And he was like, what? And I was like, I have to say something now, don't I? And so I said, I've got a present for you. And he starts walking across the street because they wouldn't let you be on the same side of the street. And he made a joke and said, it's not a cherry bomb, is it? And I said, no. And I went into complete full-on nurse mode. Like, I was introducing myself to a patient, like, hi, my name's Jodie. I'm going to be your nurse. Like, I went complete professional mode, and I shook his hand and introduced myself. And that was pretty much it. I couldn't say anything after that. I managed to mention something about the Facebook group, and he said, oh, that's you, which kind of blew my mind. I was like, wait, what? So I gave him the letter, and he said that he would read it once he got him inside. And he actually asked me if I wanted to take a picture with him, because I wasn't going to ask. So yeah, that's the story leading up to how I met him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful story as well, and you've got that personal kind of connection where, you know, I know you've messaged each other and things like that, and can you tell me about kind of why? I know there's when we're on the inside, is sometimes you're like, oh, why did he choose me, and things like that, and for me, your empathy and your love of helping people is obviously magnetic. It's one of the reasons why, you know, I love speaking to you, and I love, you know, being on the show with you. I, you know, got a lot of love and respect for you as a person. But, you know, why is it, do you think, that you were able to have that beautiful connection, or that connection with Wyndham, where you are messaging? Because it is, you know, fans and you know, as we know from wrestling Twitter and all this stuff, fans can be quite toxic in this wrestling world, and yet you have been able to cultivate a relationship where you message each other, not about, you know, you're talking about real life stuff, you're talking about intense stuff. So tell me more about that and what that means to you, really.
It happened out of the blue that he followed me back on Twitter. I give a lot of credit to the insiders and all the interviews that we did. They asked me to come on for an interview about meeting him, and that turned into Abby's Window, and we kind of kept that going, and we kind of started our own little interview thing. And we had Kyle Scarborough on, who's obviously the concept artist and amazing tattoo artist. We had him on a few times. We need to have him on again, actually. We had Jason Baker on the show, obviously, who was talking about making the Fiend masks. We had Jesse Cage on the show, who's one of Bray's closest friends. So I had pretty much everybody in his inner circle on the show to talk about either working with him or just how he is as a person. I got to be really good friends with Kyle. He's done several tattoos for me now. So I give a lot of credit to that everybody in his inner circle was like, yeah, she's cool. You're you know what I mean? So we had a video chat somewhere in there, like in September, while all of this was going on. And I remember being so panicked that I was like, I met him 9 months ago. Like, there's no way he's going to remember who I am. And he remembered me immediately. He got on video and he was like, I saw your name pop up there. And I was like, I know this one. And, you know, we just had a talk about work, and that he really misses the fans because it was during the pandemic, and that it wasn't the same, not being able to see the faces he's used to seeing all the time. And so that was a beautiful conversation. And then it wasn't long after that he started following me back on Twitter, and we just started talking about random stuff. He's not the most talkative person on social media, because I know he doesn't really enjoy it. I know he doesn't really like being on social media, but every now and then he takes time to respond, or heart react to something that I said to him. And when I met him in March, we kind of talked a little bit about, sorry that I message you a lot, and he said something to the effect, I'll always read it, I just don't always respond. So and he told me at one point, when I said, if I'm sending to you too much stuff, just let me know, I don't want to bother you. And he said, you could never bother me. So he kind of gave me that green light. So I sent him things, I don't want to say frequently, but I messaged him after SmackDown on Friday and just said, another great promo, can't wait to see you next weekend. And he heart reacted that. So
lovely. That's beautiful that you're able to share that. And one of the things that again you mentioned is again, we've talked about this before, you work in care, you support people as part of your day job, you are a nurse and you've got that background, and that's quite intense, not to put too fine a point on it. You're working with people, you're caring for people, you've got to show empathy all the time, unconditional positive regard to people, and then you come and you do Abby's Window and the Insiders and talk about your favorite wrestler. What does that do for you when you come home from, because you mentioned you do night shifts, you do day shifts. So would I be right in saying that Wyndham, and as a wider consequence of that, the Insiders and the work you do on Abby's Window is catharsis for you, Jodie? Is that fair enough to say?
Yeah, I mean, he's just continued to be that source of joy. I work night shifts. I was traveling a lot, doing interim director of nursing. So I would go into a facility for a little while and then move on to another one when they found a permanent spot. So in between those contracts and those positions, I would just pick up agency contracts to kind of keep my nursing skills sharp, because I've been in leadership for a long time. So that comes with the night shift. It's just easier. The night shifts are easier to pick up, and they tend to pay more money. So that won't be going on much longer, though, that I start my new job on the 28th, and that will be just normal Monday through Friday day shift. So no more night shifts for me. Night shift is really, really, really taxing on my mental health. Yeah, it's not great. So I try not to do night shift very often, but I'm really looking forward to the new position that I'm starting. I'm going to be working with alcohol and drug detox and rehabilitation. It's an area that I love. I've worked in it before, and I'm going to be their director of nursing. So I get to get back into leadership, which is also what I love. And I remember Bray telling me once that on that video chat, actually, that, he couldn't imagine doing what I do, and that I was really brave. And I don't know. I don't really see it that way, braveness, but it's more that I knew for a long, long time that I wanted to be a nurse, and I wanted to go into nursing. Actually, it was my sister. She had major back surgery when she was 8. And being in the hospital, in the pediatric hospital with her, the entire time, I was the first person that she asked for when she woke up.
Oh, wow.
Didn't make her mom very happy, but I was with her the whole time, and those pediatric nurses were just fantastic. And I said, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do with my life, is go be a nurse. And funnily enough, she kind of followed in my footsteps.
Oh, wow.
went to nursing school and then went back and got her nurse practitioner degree. And now she owns her own cosmetic surgery clinic.
Wow, that's incredible.
Doing like Botox and fillers and stuff. And then I went back to school and got my master's in nursing with a focus in executive leadership because I wanted to be a leader.
Yeah. Absolutely. So. It's great to see you've progressed. And I think, it'd be interesting to talk a little bit about your background as well. Obviously, you were born in the UK, which is interesting. And I know the insiders, guys, if they come to this, will know that, but not a lot of people know that. And so give me a bit of a timeline then, because it is interesting how you've got to where you are. Like, did you always, you mentioned you always wanted to be a nurse, and that's been something from a very young age. How did you get from the UK to the US to what was school like for you? And tell me, give me the timeline really from birth to where you are now and your journey that you've obviously been on. Quite interesting.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Leicester, and when I was 9, the company that my dad was working for wanted to expand globally. So they asked my dad to move to Charlotte, North Carolina to open up an office over there and start doing business. We were doing a lot of business with it was putting like badges and stuff on clothes. So we were doing a lot of business with like Mexico, South America, like that region. And it was supposed to be a 2-year contract. And my parents just moved back to England last year.
Wow.
So, we came over in 1994, and one of the biggest decisions my parents made for me at that particular moment was when I started school, they gave my parents an option. They said, based on her age, she would need to go into 4th grade. But based on her curriculum and what she studied in England, she would be repeating stuff that she already knows. So if you want to put her into 5th grade, you can do that. She'll just be a year younger than everybody else. And they elected to put me into 5th grade. So I was always a year younger than everybody. I had just turned 17, like 2 months before I graduated high school.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah, I went to high school in North Carolina. I spent most of my life in North Carolina. In 2009 is when I moved up to Indiana.
Yeah.
I met a boy, and he was in North Carolina for a job. He's from Indiana, and we met, got married, moved up to Indiana, and had a beautiful son who's now 7. And because of my postpartum depression, I kind of blew up my life, and we separated, and I chose to give him custody of our 7-year-old just because that was the best decision I could have made for him at the time. So it's tough. Thankfully, he and I co-parent really well. If I ask for more time or want to take Tate somewhere, he's very, very open to it. Yeah. My parents just moved back to England last year.
Yeah, and you're going to come over at some point. I look forward to
Hey.
I look forward to hanging out. You have to come up north, but I'm happy to travel. It's funny because you know how to say Leicester, whereas Americans that come over here, they go Leicestershire. So this is how I know you are actually from there, and you're originally from there because you know how to say it. Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for sharing that so honestly, Jodie, because it's a really interesting insight into the journey you've been on, and it goes back to the earlier question about catharsis and what Wyndham does for you. I mean, to what level? I mean, we are going to talk about the people that have supported you, the online community that you've cultivated around inside and around yourself and around the Wyndham fan base, I guess. But in terms of Wyndham and what that does for you, when you watch a SmackDown, when you watch a Raw, are you thinking about the day's stresses? Are you thinking about, you mentioned, you struggle sometimes with if patients pass away or things like that. What do you does watching a SmackDown, watching a Raw, watching a Wyndham promo give you that peace of mind, or are you one of those people that just can't switch off, or are you able to do that if you're watching, say, a wrestling show, a Wyndham promo?
Wyndham definitely helps me turn it off to an extent. Obviously, being a leader, you can't ever really fully turn it off because you're always available. It's the downside to being a leader. Sometimes you get phone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning, like, hey, we're sending so-and-so to the hospital. I just wanted to let you know, so it's unfortunately the downside of being a leader is you are available 24/7. But he definitely does give me something else to focus on. And a lot of nurses really struggle with having too much compassion for people. And I am definitely guilty of that. I really enjoy building relationships with people. So not just the patients, but the staff. And I think that's one of my strong points as a leader, as I do take a lot of time to get to know my staff. And I build relationships with them. And I feel like you get so much more out of them if they feel like you really care about them. I've had a lot of people say, like, you're not afraid to roll up your sleeves and get in the dirt with us. I'm like, no, I'm not, because I've been there. I know what that's like. I grew through that system. So I've been an aide, I've been a nurse, I've been a supervisor, I've been an assistant director of nursing, been director of nursing. I said, I've been through every single level. I know that it's tough. So
yeah,
he definitely gives me that mental break.
Good.
And he knows that. That's
yeah, it's good to know that that you do get that space for yourself. And I do want to, before we finish, ask a little bit more about what you do for time to yourself and your family in a second. But before that, you talked about the stresses and being available 24/7 in your job. I want to ask you, obviously being mindful of confidentiality and things like that, can you tell me about some moments that will stay with you and the reasons why you do it? Because you mentioned, again, those relationships that you've cultivated, when you've got to get up at 3 a.m., when you've got to answer that phone call. Jodie, can you tell me why it is that you continue to do what you do, what you love most about the job, and some memories and some moments that you will cherish and kind of, not, I don't want to get morbid and be like on your deathbed, because that's not what we're trying to talk about, but I mean things that you will remember and be like, that's why I am a nurse, that's why I am in leadership, that's why I do these things.
I think nursing is one of those great careers that you can make people better. And I think that's a big part of what memories are going to stick with me. I worked in a procedural area doing like plasmapheresis. It's kind of like dialysis on patients. And I've seen the difference in 5 procedures on where that patient started and where they ended. And, they started being, they were intubated and sedated, and then by the 5th procedure couldn't keep them in the bed because they were trying to get up and run around. So it's really that kind of career that you really get that sense that you're helping people, especially working where I am now. Like, that's my job, is to safely detox people, get them into a rehab, and try to help improve their life. And I just feel like that's something that I was called to do. The one memory that will stick with me forever. I had the opportunity at some point during my career to meet a real Holocaust survivor. And that's something that will stick with me forever. It was just such an awe-inspiring experience, because we're getting to that time where none of them are around anymore. So you don't have that real connection. It's, oh, my, grandma's grandma was there, it feels a little far away, but yeah, that's a memory that'll stick with me. I remember one particular patient, I got called in the middle of the night to do a white blood cell depletion on a patient that was in leukemia crisis. And because they can't start chemotherapy until their white cells are below 100. And their white blood cell count was like 800 something. So that particular patient will always stick with me because, you know, I helped them. I helped that patient to get to a point where they could get chemotherapy and get better. And that's one of the reasons why I have so much respect for Roman as a man, with his leukemia diagnosis. And, you know, if I ever get to meet him, I'm going to tell him that, like, I have so much respect for you as a man, like, fighting leukemia. I've worked with a lot of leukemia patients. I know how tough it is. So yeah, there's a lot of things that will stick with me, like little memories here and there. Sometimes not in a good way. I remember the first dead body I ever saw. And I was doing an ER rotation, and it was a gunshot wound to the head. Wow. And you know, you see some gruesome stuff, but the only other one that really sticks out is when I was not a nurse yet, I was working as a student. I got to assist on giving a blood transfusion to a baby that was still in utero.
Wow. Okay.
Like you know, going through nursing and seeing all these different areas, you don't realize the things they can do.
No.
And I mean, I never would have thought that you could give a blood transfusion to a baby that's still in the belly. Yeah. But you can, which is crazy. I mean, that's just insane that you can do that. But my job was running the labs around. So they would go in, draw a blood sample from the umbilical cord. I had to run it down to the lab. They would call back up and say, this is what the baby's hemoglobin is. And that would tell them how much blood to transfuse.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I think it'd be a missed opportunity, Jodie. Obviously, we have talked a little bit about Wyndham, and but this is very much about you. And I wonder if anybody was watching this and was inspired by you. Obviously, people watch the Insiders, and we'll do the plugging for the Insiders and Abby's in a minute. But if anybody was watching this and is interested in a career in nursing, obviously you've mentioned leadership as well, but particularly, I feel your passion for nursing is there. If anybody was watching this and it was interested in a healthcare role, something like nursing, what kind of key tips and advice would you give to anybody about the realities of working in that industry? Maybe 3 or 5 key things that you've learned that you would pass on to anybody who wanted to get into nursing.
I think the key thing that took me a little bit too long to learn is where your home is. If I would have spent a little bit longer when I first became a nurse trying to figure out where where my home was, I jumped into long-term care so fast after I graduated because it was the job that was paying the most money. And long-term care I don't like it. I mean, I love the patients. There's such a great population, but the staffing ratios and if you work in long-term care for 6 months, you can work anywhere else because the ratios are going to be so much more less. You have 20, 25 patients when you work in long-term care, and then you work somewhere else and you have 7. Like, it's a big difference. So long-term care was never really my forte, but I jumped into it really quickly. And take that first year, or even while you're in nursing school, workplaces, go to different places as a student, really figure out where your home was. Like, I learned a little bit later, I gravitate towards psych and addiction, and that's where I'm at now. Every place I've ever been really successful has had something to do with psych. Because it's just where I feel at home. The only place that I would ever, like, if they ever offered me the right kind of money, I would drop everything and go back in a heartbeat, was that procedural area. And they've tried to have me back a few times, and we can't get to the salary. And I was supposed to move into a leadership position there when COVID happened. And the job that I was supposed to move into disappeared. Otherwise, I would still be there. It was my favorite place to work. It always will be. But yeah, find out where your home is and stick with it. Don't be afraid to explore in the first few years of your career and figure out where your home is, because it takes a lot of stress off of you when you love the population that you work with, as opposed to it's a job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, when I pick up shifts through agency at a long-term care, it's like, it's a job.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously you're going to interact with the patients and you're going to give them the best care that you can, but it's a job for the day.
Yeah.
So that would be my biggest piece of advice. Also, don't rush into leadership positions too quickly. If leadership is what you want to do it gradually. Don't try to jump into it really quickly because of the money. I made that mistake as well. I had been a director of nursing for less than a year and got offered a regional director of nursing position for the state of Indiana corrections, and jumped at it because it was a large increase in salary. I'd never worked in corrections. I was like, this could be fun. And a couple months into it, I was like, I'm not ready for this. Like, going from one facility to 22 prisons. Nope, I'm not. It sounded like a good job, but if I would have waited for another year and then gone into it, I feel like I would have done a much better job.
Okay.
I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
So don't rush into a leadership role.
Yeah. Take your time, find your home. Yeah. It's good advice across different industries, but obviously particularly for those into nursing. 2 or 3 more questions now then, Jodie, before we finish. Obviously you mentioned how close you are to your family and how, obviously you've had certain challenges over, in your career, mental health wise, family wise, and things like that. Outside of work, outside of the insiders, what kind of things drive you? What kind of things motivate you? Obviously, you've got family there. You've got family in the UK. What stuff are you into? What movies do you watch? What places do you like to go to draw inspiration from? And tell me about the people that really drive you.
So I have 2 beautiful stepdaughters that are 15 and 9. That we just got custody of at the end of the summer. They both wanted to come and live with us, and we knew that was going to be a big change because we were used to just 1 and now we have 3. But I knew that was going to be the best thing for them. I don't want to say that it was a bad environment where they were at. I know that their mom loves them very much, but they needed some more one-on-one care. They needed a solid family unit that can, work together. So my girls, they're amazing. They both have their own set of challenges, but, they have their own set of rewards too. And me and my 9-year-old, we like to go to the drive-in together. Obviously when it's not freezing out. So we'll go watch drive-in movies. I took her a few weeks ago and we went and watched Ghostbusters. So that's kind of like our little thing. And then Ari, my 15-year-old, I try to make times that me and her can just do things too. Like we'll go shopping or, we'll go get our nails done or something like that. So the girls are great. Ari's grown up a lot over the past couple of years. Harper's kind of in that stage where she can be a little bit difficult. But her sister was like that at that age too. But, and then I have my 4-year-old who is hell on wheels. He's full of energy. I don't know where he gets it from. And, I try to do some things with just him too. And then I have probably the most supportive husband on the planet. We don't have the traditional kind of family style. I'm the one that works and provides for our family. He's a stay-at-home dad. And, he does all the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry, Like, I don't have to worry about coming home and be like, oh crap, I got to do the dishes, or oh crap, I got laundry to do. Like, he takes care of all of that. He does the grocery shopping. So I don't have to worry about, I literally just have to go to work, which is fantastic. You really need, he's my best friend. You really need your best friend at your side to, build you up like that and give your life that balance.
Yeah.
And we share a lot of interests. We both really like horror movies. My 9-year-old is trying to get us to let her watch horror movies.
I've seen before the insider streams, there's some coercion going on. Yeah,
a lot of coercion. Yeah, she really wants to start watching horror movies. I'm like, I don't know, Harper, you're still a little bit young for certain things. I guess be a little bit more agreeable to the gore stuff as opposed to the supernatural stuff.
Yeah.
But I've been pretty desensitized to blood being a nurse.
Yeah.
So so I kind of pass that off to the husband. I'm like, that's up to you. I'm too biased against it, because I've seen every kind of trauma you could ever imagine.
Yes.
So, blood doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, my husband's great. And I have, even though my parents are in England, they're super supportive. I talk to them pretty much on a daily basis, which is really, really nice.
Awesome.
But yeah, we love horror movies. Music is a big thing for me.
Yeah.
That is my ultimate self-care thing. Music. It doesn't matter. Like, obviously there's certain things that I will gravitate towards, but it depends what kind of mood I'm in. Sometimes I will stick on a Pandora radio station that's film scores.
Yeah.
Or, sometimes, when I'm getting up and getting ready, I'll like a certain playlist. You know what I mean? But it doesn't matter how dark and awful I feel. If I stick on some Caleb Johnson, I'm immediately smiling. He did a lot of the similar things for me that Bray did for me. When I first ever heard Caleb sing, I had just gotten that job offer for the regional director of nursing, and I had no idea what to do. And we were literally driving to the concert, and I was just praying, like, I need a slap me in the face kind of sign. Okay. And out comes Caleb and starts singing that song, and I was like, oh shit. So, and I did get to tell him that him coming out and singing that song pretty much changed my life.
Good.
So
good. It's wonderful and I know your passion for Caleb is there. Absolutely. 2 more to finish then, Jodie. I think obviously it'd be a shame to ignore the support you've got online. You're active on Twitter, on social media, the Insiders team, the people that follow you on Abby's Window. What would you like to say to those people that have got behind you, whether it's supporting your career? Obviously, you mentioned your husband and you mentioned obviously family there, but your online community that you've cultivated. What would you say to those people who've got behind you and will continue to do so through your career as a podcaster and as a nurse and as a leader and all those things?
I couldn't do it without them. Like, being on social media and having a show on YouTube, like, the people who watch and support you are such an integral piece of that, and it's such an escape from life stressors to be able to get on Twitter and talk to people, like, and communicate with friends that I've made because of Wyndham. And that, that's another thing that helps me if I'm not feeling too hot. Like, there's certain people that I'll reach out to on Twitter or social media. I'm like, hey, I'm really having a shit day. I need you to tell me what I need to hear. And I've gotten to know them well enough that they know exactly what I want to hear. So, I have a lot of people that I can lean on for their friendship, and I've met so many great people because of Bray and made family, extended family. Like they're my, my insiders family are my family, and I love it. I will keep doing it until we don't have anybody watching anymore.
I think there'll be a long-term following for a very long time, and it's a pleasure to be a small part of it. Next up, I think again, just going back and looking at the future and what you want to achieve. Obviously, you mentioned having Bray on the insiders. What would you like to achieve in terms of the future? Obviously, we mentioned your career stuff. You've got a new job, but where would you like to see the insiders? And is it is there anything that you want to see happen to the insiders? Because again, we've got Jeff, we've got Joe, we've got good people on that, and a good community as well.
I would definitely like to see us grow and continue to grow. I know Jeff and I have talked about me doing more of a clips segment, because I think the biggest downside, and it was C Wrestling that actually encouraged me to do it. You have to wait until Abby's for your reaction to stuff, as opposed to, short term, like, oh my gosh, did you guys just see that? Oh my gosh, this is what I think initially, and post that on the YouTube channel and then come back and talk about it. So we are going to be starting to do stuff like that. Jeff is kind of walking me through training and how to do it, and so that'll be exciting. Have been working with Bray for a while, trying to get him on the show. He's a perfectionist, so everything's about timing. And now that he's back with WWE, obviously there's going to be certain hoops that we have to jump through to get him on the show, but I have no doubt that at some point he will be on there.
Fantastic.
He's already told me that. So, and I would also really like to have Caleb on the show too. He's a big horror fan, and Jeff is a big horror fan, and I'm a big horror fan, and Joe's a big horror fan. We're all really big horror fans. So being able to talk to Caleb about that would just be a lot of fun.
Fingers crossed, man. Fingers crossed that can be done.
He said he would love to. Last time I asked him about it, maybe early next year.
Fantastic. And I want to ask you, it's probably putting you on the spot here a little bit, and obviously I am far from Wyndham Rotunda and Bray Wyatt, but if you could, not presuming that Bray would watch it, but if Bray was in front of you right now and you had the opportunity to say to Bray Wyatt and Wyndham what he means to you, what would you tell him? What would you say to him?
I do get to see him on Saturday. He will be in front of me. He's very aware what he means to me already. That I don't think he would need a reminder. He knows that he saved my life. He knows that he gives me that source of joy, and that I love him. And so I would probably just give him, like I'm going to do on Saturday, give him a big hug and tell him that I love him, and I'm really glad that he's back.
Fantastic. Well, I can't wait for you to do that, and I can't wait to see the results of it next week. It's time for the plugging bit. Obviously, you do have the insiders. Obviously, you mentioned new job. Is there anything you'd like to plug? Anything you think I've missed during the course of? I said half an hour, and we're approaching an hour. This is what I get. I love talking to you. So, is there anything you feel like I've missed? Anything you want to plug before we finish up?
Obviously the insiders, come into Abby's window. We also do watch alongs for stuff. So, but we also have a Facebook group that is now the largest Bray Wyatt Facebook group on Facebook. And it's called the Firefly Funhouse Fan Group. We have 28.8 thousand members. When I met Bray back in 2020, we had just hit 12,000. So we've grown a lot, and It's a really respectful group. We don't tolerate any bullying or negative talk. We really try to keep it a positive experience. So yeah, that's my only other plug is find the Firefly Funhouse fan group on Facebook.
I love it. It's been a great resource for me, actually. I love being I always get notifications. Like I can always rely on notifications from that group every minute of the day. So I got a lot of love for those people. Well, Jodie, I could continue talking to you for ages. Like I say, and I'm sure we'll have many other chats over our time together. But it's been an absolute pleasure sitting with you today. Thank you so much for sharing, honestly, your love of Bray and a bit about your personal life as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.